Welcome to Sister Sharpens Sister. As you can tell, we are not Karen, Delina, and Shalon. We are just Karen and Arnie.
Yep.
Shalon had some unexpected company come in for the week, and she's going to be unable to record. So, what we've decided to do is to extend a little bit on some of the things that we talked about last week. Well, one of the things, anyway, which was the West Virginia Bigfoot Festival, which we went to on Saturday.
Yes. Yeah, this was the fifth annual West Virginia Bigfoot Festival. It is organized by the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum in Sutton, West Virginia, and they put it on at Holly Gray Park in Sutton. It's a beautiful place. Uh, they have speakers, they have activities, they had vendors that were selling Bigfoot themed items, that were selling crafts, that were selling stickers and books. They had tables for
Stuff.
they had tables for the speakers to meet with the public. They had all kinds of wonderful food trucks, and it was a very nice event.
Very, very nice event. However, I do wish, and Arnie, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I do wish it were a little more close to spring than summertime.
Well, one of the issues we ran into was it was 90 degrees, felt like 98 with the humidity. There was some air movement as far as wind. There was not a lot. So that
Right.
was an issue. So you really felt the heat anytime that you were out in the sun.
You know,
But
and
this is unusual for West Virginia because typically we get these kind of days late July and into August.
August.
We typically do not get them in June. It's more like 70s, low 80s. So typically it is much more conducive to hanging around, being out, enjoying the weather, and spending a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. And there was only one what do they call it, like a pavilion thing where there were picnic tables and people were um, they were there because it was basically the only shade unless you were inside a building. And the building that was there, this is where we saw Jeff Meldrum and a couple of the other authors that we like. That building's not air conditioned. It is basically just a big metal box with a concrete floor, and it was extremely hot in there. And I do want to say that the guys that were in there and everybody that was, I mean, they had a few vendors in there. Like there was this one company selling Squatch juice or something like that. I'll put it up on the screen what it actually was, but it's a hydration drink. It was really good. I tried a sample, and bravo to those people for being in that building because it was stifling.
Very warm, but everybody was wonderfully kind, nice, patient. All the authors, all the speakers that were in there that had tables were very kind to spend time in there and talk with people and take pictures and had their own books and product with them. So it was really nice. It was just, again, it was a product of this rather wild summer that we're all experiencing.
hmm Here's a list of the things that we liked. We liked that it was very spacious and there was plenty of parking. One of the things that we didn't like about that was the process of getting into park. We spent how long waiting to actually get into the park itself?
Yeah, yeah.
How
The
long was it? Like 40 minutes, an hour?
the park itself was only maybe 3 miles, 4 miles off of the exit at most.
Yeah.
And yet, because they had, and again, they were expecting 30,000 people. And what happened was it took us approximately an hour and 15 minutes to make it those 3 to 4 miles.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I don't know what the holdup was. I do know that we were coming in from one direction and there was an entirely different line of cars coming in from another direction, and everybody
There's,
was very nice about taking turns
yeah,
about going into the park. But it seemed to me like there could have been a more expedient way to have done this.
no, there's a north access and there's a south
There's
access. There's
in
just
other
two
words.
ways in to get to the actual drive that takes you into the park. And because people were lined up in both directions, and because it's a one-lane highway,
No, well, two lanes to get to the park and one lane into the park.
yes, so the issue is that there's just more cars than can be handled by those types of roads.
Yeah,
They're country roads, literally country roads up and down around curves, and
yeah,
that's just part of the issue. The nice part is that the park is really good about allowing the festival to come in. It is a very nice park. It's very large, a lot of parking. They had ball fields, they had plenty of room for everything to be set up, and it
yeah.
worked out very
A
nicely
lot of
that way.
picnic space.
But unfortunately, that also means that because it's a small local park, it has small local access
Yeah.
and is just not designed for the amount of people coming in. And even we heard from family that had left earlier in the day and they still had approximately the same type of wait. So it was not time dependent, it was just dependent on those roads.
Yeah.
And you can see both sides of it because it's very easy access for the museum to be able to go over there
Hmm.
and figure out where they want things set up. And it does work out very nicely that way. But yeah, it's just that's a part of the issue with being a local event.
Yeah, yeah. And it was only $5 per person to get in for an all day event. I mean, you could have stayed there all day. They opened at 10 and they closed at 7. And you could have stayed there all day for that one price of $5. And we were fortunate enough to actually get a parking spot really close to where the main things were that we wanted to see. Like we just wanted to experience the food trucks, which, by the way, we had an awesome barbecue sandwich.
Yep.
Gil's Pit Barbecue, GIL apostrophe S. Amazing. It was wonderful. Um, what else did we see? They had a whole building full of crafts that we didn't get the chance to go visit because quite frankly we were almost on the point of heat exhaustion. So much so that I was completely beat red, but I was not sweating,
Yep.
which is not a good sign. And his shirt was drenched.
Yep.
But we did get to see, and I call him Arnie's main man because he really likes to listen to him in a podcast and read his books. But his name is Jeff Meldrum. You want to talk a little bit about him?
He's a professor, I believe, and I may be wrong, it's Iowa State. Has a wonderful book. If you have a chance to read it on Bigfoot, it really goes into wonderful depth. And he was very kind to talk for an extended period of time.
Yeah, we spoke with him for about 15 minutes.
Yeah. The other speakers that were there were all meeting with people. Lyle Blackburn,
Hmm.
there were
Ken
two,
Gerhard
Ken Gerhardt, and they were just very kind, very nice, talking with all the people. Very
signing the
happy.
books. Yeah,
He's
taking
very happy to
pictures.
sign books and take pictures, and that was awesome. In a different building, they had two of the crew from Mountain Monsters,
Yeah,
and they
the
were
Ames team.
just, yeah, they were, taking pictures and greeting people and just so super nice.
Yeah.
And everybody was just super nice.
Yeah, it was very very nice. I definitely want to go back, but like I said, we were heat exhausted and just ready to be in the air conditioning. We were there for 3 hours. Do you remember how long we were there? I'm pretty sure it
It
was.
was close to, it was between probably 2.5 and 3.
Yeah, and we had our oldest daughter and our two of our grandsons with us, and they had a good time walking around. And another thing that they need to do next year is to get a cell booster because there was absolutely no service. When Arnie says country roads, it means back in the holler.
Yeah. And unfortunately, what that meant was not so much, people contacting others and things like that. But the
Right.
biggest issue was for the vendors because there was not access, for most of the vendors, there was not access to being able to use charge cards,
Right.
debit cards, things like that. So it did affect their sales because, they're very happy to accept cash. But, how many people carry cash these days or carry
Exactly.
enough to buy food and to buy water and to buy this gift or this book or this, there were jewelry and t-shirts
Oh
and
gosh, yeah.
and crafts and all kinds of really awesome things out there.
As we were leaving, I did see that somebody had either purchased or bought at auction a chainsaw wood carved bear that was about 6 foot tall, and they were loaded into the back end of this guy's truck as we were leaving. So they had that there.
They had a
You know
couple
what we?
people doing, I believe, doing chainsaw, and they
Mm-hmm.
had Bigfoot and all kinds of
Yeah,
really cool
there
things.
was a waterproof face painting that was going on, and we saw several kids running around doing a really good job with the face painting too. It wasn't just something that you would see at like a high school fundraiser that the art teacher had their students doing. It looked really professional, and I was impressed. Another thing that we want to mention is that on the Facebook page, they did say, please leave your pets at home, which we did. We left our dog Flynn with our youngest son, who lives just a few blocks from us. And but some people didn't listen to that, and we did see some pets that looked like they needed, well,
They needed water,
they
and
needed water and a cool spot to sit. Yeah.
yeah,
I think maybe more than one station, because as we were leaving, we did see a if it stings, if it burns, it was an aid station that
mm,
you could go to. There needed to be another one in a different spot with shade and a water, ice for these animals, just a place for them to sit and cool off. I did see one golden retriever that, boy, you talk about a long tongue, wide at the end, panting, was pretty severe.
mm.
I did see that when we went into the building with Jeff Meldrum, there was a table immediately as soon as you walked in, and they had water there in a cooler, and she said that she let that dog drink out of the cooler because it was so exhausted from heat. And I think that if a local animal shelter or a rescue were to set up something at the Bigfoot Festival, then and maybe take donations, that would be a good thing. So I don't know what you think about that.
Mhm.
To me, that's a good idea, but I think all my ideas are good ideas. So I don't know if he does or not. But yeah, it was it was a good time. Other than those things of being like heat exhausted and no airflow, but that's not the Bigfoot Museum's fault. It's not something that they could have. They don't control the weather. At least I don't think they do. Maybe Bigfoot controls the weather. Oh, something we did see too while we were eating our sandwiches was that I just happened. It was a clear day, and I looked up into the clouds, and I will put that up on the screen, like right in front of Arnie's face, right there. But there was a cloud shaped like a really big foot. No, I just thought that was funny. Anyway, Shalon will be back next week with all of her information on the history of the Appalachian Mountains and how certain things contributed to the culture and the way things are here. So we'll be back
So
next week with that, right?
yes,
All right. Um,
you will, not me.
right, he won't be. I usually do like, and sign off and, love you and all that good stuff, but I'll see you next week. And
Yes,
he'll be somewhere. I don't know where you'll be.
hiding.
He'll be hiding from all this nonsense.
Yes.
You guys have a great week. Stay hydrated. That's important. Where's the off button?